All right. We are, you know what? I'm early. We're 2 minutes early. We're live though. Abuamerican here with Kamran. Pasha, am I saying it right?
You are saying it right, my brother.
Nice. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So let's start off with that. Kamran, you are Muslim, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a Muslim. I was born in Pakistan, raised in Brooklyn, New York, live in Los Angeles.
Nice. So wait, born in Pakistan and then raised in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
so how old were you when you came over?
Well, my family immigrated back in '76 when I was about 3 years old. And, for me, Pakistan is memories like black and white movie, right? It's an old movie. And so, the funny thing is I grew up in a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn, like, ultra Orthodox Hasidim. And there's one Muslim kid living amongst them, right? So it was a very interesting experience. But yeah, and then I come to Hollywood and I'm also surrounded by my wonderful Jewish brothers here too. So it's
okay.
Transition one city to another. It's all good.
Yeah, we were talking about so we were just talking in the studio a little bit just about work and everything, what you do here actually. So what is it that you do, for work and career and everything? Give us a breakdown of that.
Sure. Well, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a director, I'm a novelist, I'm a screenwriter. I've been working in Hollywood for about 19 years. I moved here in April 2001, shortly before September 11th. I'm happy to share some of the interesting adventures that I've had in that journey. But prior to that, I was a lawyer in New York, and I was bored out of my mind, and I'd written a screenplay in school just out of boredom. And I said, I don't really like what I'm doing. And so I just started randomly sending it out to agents. I didn't know anybody in Hollywood. I'm a Muslim kid sitting in New York City. I just sent it out by email to random agents I didn't know. And most of them just rejected or didn't even respond. One actually bothered to read my script and said, "Hey, man, you actually know how to write." He represented me. And then by the will of God, I suddenly sold 2 scripts to Paramount while I was working as a lawyer. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's what I said." I was like,
nice.
I can do this. And I didn't know that I had this ability, and discovered, alhamdulillah, it was actually something that was easy for me. And so I moved to LA in 2001, then discovered selling the 3rd script wasn't that easy. And then the struggle begins. Right. But by God's grace, I'm here. It'll be 19 years in April.
Wow. Okay, man. I got to absorb all that. So you're a lawyer. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Former lawyer. I don't practice anymore.
Okay. Does that mean you're like, what is it? No bar or something? Is it not bar, but it's something like that?
Yeah. I basically let my license lapse after. It takes a lot of money you have to take a lot of classes to keep it, and you have to pay a lot of money. And I've been so focused in my other career now. I was only a lawyer for about 18 months before I sold my first script. And I said, I love this more. And so I let that go. Okay,
wow. You mind me asking, what law did you practice or study for that? It was a short time, 18 months, but I mean, what branch of law was that?
Well, I went to Cornell Law School, which is a good law school, and then I was working in New York City for a major law firm called Paul Weiss, and I had always been attracted to Hollywood, and they were sort of the big law firm in New York that did entertainment, but I was working in their litigation arm, and they're a very respected trial law firm. And, I was just low-level associate, a big firm like that. We got hundreds of attorneys. I'm just doing, it's not really legal work. You're mostly just going through boxes of evidence for the partner, right? And in that time, and working 8 hours a week, going through boxes of evidence, and it was a good place. If I wanted to be a lawyer, I'd still be there. Not a lot of people love the law, but I actually liked those people. It was a good firm, good environment. If I wanted to be a trial lawyer, alhamdulillah, I had some talent in that would have been the place to stay. But then I discovered I could do this, and I was like, I love this more. I'm going to go to Hollywood.
Wow. If you got a skill like that, that's amazing, man. So you went from law to Hollywood. So you say you wrote a couple of scripts. Do you remember which ones they were? You said 19 years. Do you remember which ones were the first ones that actually gave you a break in? What was about it or anything like this?
Yeah, it's interesting. The very first script that I sold actually had an Islamic theme to it, and it was just by random accident. It was, there was a TV show back in 2000, 2001 on UPN. Remember UPN? The network is dead now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, old school, right? And UPN, right? And so they had this show called 7 Days, which was like this time travel show, right? It was a science fiction show. The idea is something like September 11th happens, but the government's got this time machine to send like an operative back 1 week, 7 days to prevent the guys from getting on the plane, that kind of thing, right? And so that was the TV show. It was just a small TV show, and I liked it, and I just wrote what's called a spec script, like an example script, sample script of it. The setting was actually Jerusalem, where someone sets off a bomb on Al-Aqsa and destroys the Dome of the Rock, and that sets this horrible war between in the Muslim world and Israel. And then they send this agent back to prevent that from ever happening. I just wrote that as just this fun sort of creative exercise, and I sent that as a writing sample. And this agent got hold of it. He was representing people on the show. He's like, "Man, this is better than anything they got in production. Let me see if I can help you." And so he gave it to the showrunner of the show. And in Hollywood, it's really a violation legally and of the rules for them to accept scripts outside of their production, because there's all kinds of copyright issues, all kinds of. But they were struggling, and the showrunner, the boss, read my script and goes, "Yeah, this is better than anything we got. Why don't we just do this?" And so he bought this script, and I got this check, with this really large check out of nowhere for this script that I'd written as sort of an experiment for myself. And then they flew me out to LA. They had me write another script for them, and those two scripts were enough to get me into the Writers Guild, make me a professional screenwriter. And then I said, I just made these a heck of a lot of money for having fun and for just a limited amount of work. From my point of view, it was pretty easy. I said, maybe I could do this professionally. And then I moved out to LA, and then September 11th happened, and then it wasn't that easy for being Muslim out there. You discovered the hard way, man. You discovered the hard way.
Yeah, dude's messing it up for everybody else. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. So also alongside with screenwriting, you write books, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have 2 novels published so far. Happy to show them. One is my first novel, Mother of the Believers, which is actually a historical epic about the birth of Islam from the point of view of the Prophet's wife, Aisha. May God be pleased with her. And, this is, I wrote this novel because, a lot of, first of all, most people don't know the history of Islam, Muslim or non-Muslim. Muslims have their history books on Islam that they keep on their shelf, and they'll read them tomorrow, inshallah, right? Because it looks like boring scholarly stuff, and Ibn this said that, and he heard that from this, and they don't want to read it, and they just want to talk. And so I said, man, this is, as a storyteller, this is the best story I've ever heard. I mean, it's better than Lord of the Rings, better than Star Wars. And you're like, this is the most incredible story of how these people, who are essentially a primitive, nomadic, people, are transformed by one man, and both spiritually, physically, economically, and they change the world. And so I wanted to tell from the point of view of the woman that shatters all the stereotypes. You got Aisha. May God be pleased with her. She's the Prophet's wife, and she's, everyone. As a Muslim, the constant, you guys oppress your women. Your women are all these, and and she shatters every stereotype. I mean, she's a strong-willed, loud, intense, passionate, scholarly woman. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, he loves her the most, and he chooses to be with her. When he's dying, he's like, everybody else out, I just want to be with her, right? And and she's complex, she's flawed, she's got a bad temper, she's got a vengeful side, and she's also very devout. And so I was like, this is a really interesting person to tell that story from. And so I told that, and then I have a second novel, which was published after that, which is called Shadow of the Swords, which is a novel about the Crusades from the Muslim point of view, about Salahuddin versus Richard the Lionheart. You know that story's been told 1,000 times from the Crusader point of view, right? You never hear from you never hear from the Muslim point of view. I'm like, the Crusaders weren't the heroes of that story, man. They're the bad guys. And why do we tell the story from their point of view? And so, alhamdulillah, I published those with Simon & Schuster, a big publisher, and and that's great. I'm working on some other stuff now, but that's what I'm doing.
That's impressive, man. We were talking about this just a little bit earlier before we came on air, that I'm really impressed by writers who put out like multiple works, not just one, because it's like I've been working on my autobiography for a while. It just never feels right. I've been deep editing, trying to finish it now, and just writing up the last few little pages that are missing, the chapter or two to close it off, and it seems like such a daunting task. So you sit here with these 2 huge books that you have. I'm just like, wow, wow. I'm impressed, man.
Well, can I be honest with you? It's all primarily because of survival. I've been struggling out here 19 years. I've had some successes, a lot of failures. And if I'm not constantly creating, it's like that whole thing. You got to keep sending the ships out. 90% of them are going to sink in the storm, and a couple of them are going to come back with a treasure, right? And so I'm just constantly throwing stuff out, that's about my success rate. People say I just keep throwing things out, because that's the only way I can pay my rent. I got to keep trying.
It's sort of like social media, just without the paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, with the paycheck, actually, social media doesn't have the paycheck, generally, not for.
Well,
not for
man,
me.
you're more blank in social media. I can't figure this stuff out. I could probably make all these like super chats. I don't know how any of that works, man. I don't know how to monetize any of it. I probably should just Google it. Like my mom's really good with Google. She figures everything out. But I could probably just Google and figure out how to do this, but I'm whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, I started working with people who actually have a better understanding and foundation with this stuff. Some of the basic stuff, like with YouTube, especially since this is the platform I really started on, I've gotten pretty good at now. But other stuff, man, with websites and all that other stuff, I always turn to somebody else. I just hire other people. It's too much for me. I'm an old man, so.
No, but that's leadership, right? I mean, you're creating your brand, and now you're actually employing people. I mean, that's what leadership is. And I have to say, I've been following your online presence, I've been following your tweets, I've been following your video channel, and I have to say, I've been very impressed. I think you're really putting out a very important message in a way that people of this generation and of particularly American European culture can understand what Islam has to offer to the modern world. Because all the events that are happening in the world right now, Islam becomes the boogeyman for both the right wing and the left wing. And I'm like, man, we got solutions for you. What are you boogieing us for? We got solutions for your problems.
It's crazy, isn't it?
There. Yeah.
It's something I always say. It's like, I say the right wants to kill Muslims and the left wants to kill Islam.
That's exactly right. I once wrote an article for the Huffington Post talking about how hating Islam is the new black, like in fashion, right? It's the new black. And both sides were in on it. And you hit the exact issue. The right wing actually, for all their grumbling, actually respects Islam, even if they don't want to say it, right? They see it as having certain values that they feel Western civilization no longer promotes. But they resent that we're the ones doing it. And that's just xenophobia. And then the left wing is like, well, I don't want those values, man. But I want to use you as a nice little, minority I can use as a prop for my politics. You keep your mouth shut. I'll use the hijab as a political weapon. But I don't want to hear nothing about modesty and about sexual morality. I don't want to hear anything crap about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny how the right likes to use this as a boogeyman. I think the right uses us as a boogeyman more than the left because they like to use us against the left. Well, if you give the Muslims control, if you're friends with them, they're gonna throw you off a roof if you're gay, and just the stuff they say that they try and throw some of us. It's burqas or gay people. They come up with these craziest things that they say and they do to just try and throw us under a bus so that they can gain followers. No, please, yeah.
I have a direct experience with that in Hollywood. I've been an interesting pattern here. So I've been here 19 years. I've been here through the George W. Bush administration, been there through the Obama administration, and now I've been here through Trump. And here's the thing. This will surprise people. During the Bush administration, my career skyrocketed because all the Hollywood liberals were like, we got to fight George Bush. Oh, here's this Muslim guy. We'll use him, right? And so I had this TV show on at the time called A Sleeper Cell, which you haven't seen. I hope you check it out. It's Michael Ealy was our star. He played African-American Muslim who's an FBI agent. And he infiltrates an Al-Qaeda group because he's Muslim. He passes for it, right? And so he gets in and he actually defeats the terrorists. And this was done as a show on Showtime. Got a couple of Emmy nominations, Golden Globe nominations. And it was a counterpoint to 24, which had the standard Muslim villain. And that was a show that succeeded during the Bush era because there was all these liberals were like, oh, we want to use Muslims against George W. Bush. The moment Obama was elected, my career stopped. My phone stopped ringing. All my projects died. The same people, literally the same people that were promoting my stuff a year before didn't want to talk to me no more. Right?
That's wild.
And then you saw shows like Homeland and Tyrant and all these shows. You didn't have a lot of good Muslims there. And suddenly these are all, Homeland was on Showtime 2 years after Sleeper Cell, which was, Sleeper Cell was a very positive portrayal of Muslims. And then Homeland comes out with this negative portrayal. Same people. But now Bush is out. Now, like, all right, well, Islam is the real adversary. We got rid of that guy. And so for those 8 years, my career, I was stumbling. And then the moment Trump was elected, I was working on a TV show at the time on the CW, and I walked in the office the next day and people were actually crying in tears. I mean, people were weeping. They were flabbergasted. They were red-faced. And I said, well, my career's coming back. SubhanAllah, that day, my career, phone calls, all my old projects came back alive. I got 3 projects I wrote that were dead for 8 years during Obama that I'm now moving. I got 3 TV shows that I wrote that nobody wanted to talk about.
That's wild.
Everyone's like, hey, man, I want this. So that's something about Hollywood liberals, right?
It really does. This actually like kind of relates into something I observed. It's just odd because I just made this connection right now. When we look at like leftist protests, especially in the UK, because I don't know what it is with the UK and the left, but they're really in love with it out there, and they really like to use Muslims out there. Sure. So the left loves using Muslims to their benefit when it when it benefits them. But then the moment they have what they want, they forget who you are. Then all of a sudden you're one of them.
And the left has gone to, especially in Britain, has gone to a very, let's just say it's gone to very much on the edge of trans rights, right? And some Muslims are saying, man, I don't know if I want my daughter going to the bathroom with a man with a penis and a wig, right? And some Muslims are saying, there's, we're tolerant of a lot of stuff, but we got to talk about this. And now the leftists are freaking out. Oh, you're anti-trans, you're anti-this. I was like, it's interesting to watch the dynamic change.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, that was a very surprising connection right there, man. That's really interesting. So under Trump, you think it's boom times for you, huh?
It's boom time for me. And and what's interesting is during the interesting things happened in Trump that didn't happen when I was here during Bush. At the time, it was really just myself, and I discovered there was another African-American Muslim woman who was working in the industry. It was just two of us out of 10,000 people in the Writers Guild, just two of us. In the last couple of years of Trump, the industry has been rapidly bringing in young Muslims, 20-year-olds right out of college, trying to get them jobs. And I mentor a lot of these people, and I'm telling them right now, I was like, man, this is a window. You take it, because the moment Trump is out, I don't care if it's next year or 6 years from now, whatever. The moment Trump is out, right, we're done. Exactly, we're done. And it's going to be even more visceral. It's going to be worse than it was during Obama, because then we're going to become the platform for that. They don't got Trump no more. Now we're the platform for them projecting all their fears about right-wing conservative culture onto us, because we're the last bastion of traditional values on the whole planet. We're the last ones, right? And we ain't moving on it, right? We're really stubborn, right? And that's a good thing. That's the barakah of Allah, is that we're stubborn on our values, and they're going to come at us with ferocity once Trump is out.
Indeed.
I ain't no Trump supporter. This is working out for me, man. I don't like this guy, but whatever. I got a job.
But hey, take it how it comes, right? Exactly. Be the opportunist. Yeah, this guy Aki, I guess he said it for a long time. The liberals are the real problem. Wolves in sheep's clothing. That's one thing I have to respect about conservatives, man. They're pretty consistent in their dislike for Muslims and Islam.
You know what they're what they're about. You know what they're about. There's no lie.
They don't flip the script.
and the gentleman who just said that, that's exactly what Malcolm X said. Malcolm X said that in the 60s, right? He said that in multiple times in interviews, that the white liberal is the fox. He's the one that's pretending to be your friend, but he's ready to eat you. The wolf, is straightforward. He's your enemy. The fox is trying to befriend you. He's more dangerous.
So you want to talk about that a little bit more? Hollywood and whatnot. You covered it briefly, but it's been rough lately in terms of work and people or whatever else. What's changed in terms of the way you're handled individually, I guess is the question what I'm asking. What's your individual experience? We have a general picture of Muslims on a whole, but you as an individual, how do you find work there and the situation?
Well, the biggest thing that I found, because I came here very early before this sort of new wave of young Muslims are coming, right? Mm-hmm. And then I had these successes like Sleeper Cell, and I then got onto big shows like Bionic Woman on NBC, whatever. And so I got some prominence. What happened then is that the industry became aware that I existed. I was really the only openly practicing Muslim at the time, right? And so while they were willing to use me for certain political purposes, I also very quickly made very open enemies, right? Very open enemies who said, this guy is a threat to our narrative, right? He's useful right now, but we got to shut him down. And the great thing about it is that Hollywood is a small town. Everyone talks. And so all of it filters back to me every time. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the producers of Homeland, Homeland got a lot of criticisms. I think you may have heard that there was that instance where these Arab graffiti artists wrote "Homeland is racist" on this graffiti wall.
So awesome! I made a video about it.
And so and there was not a single Arab or Muslim on this 300-person set to notice that, right? And that's why they did it, right? And so that got them a lot of bad PR. So I had a friend of mine, who's a producer, called me and said, "Man, I want to talk to you. I want to go to coffee with you." And he's a white producer. I said, "I'm really disturbed by something. I want to talk to you about it." I said, "Okay." So we go have lunch. And he says, I was talking to one of the producers of Homeland, and he was very upset with the bad PR they're getting about Muslims and all this stuff. And so my friend said, man, because by the way, everyone knew who I was. I mean, I'd actually met these producers, before. It's like, you know, Kamran, why don't you just hire him? He'll solve the problem. He'll give you accurate representation of the Middle East, right? You know, on Sleeper Cell, there were Muslim villains, there were also Muslim heroes, but it was accurate. And he said, and this is what this guy said to him directly, because he thought it was going to be kept in sort of the white cocoon of privilege, right? But he said to him, you know, I can't hire Kamran. He'll challenge our narrative. Can't have that on the show, right? And my friend was so shocked that he would say that to me. He's like, I'm not going to hire this guy because he's actually going to fix the show, and I don't want to fix the show. I just want to get this PR crap off my back, you know? And so he's talking about it. I said, yeah, that's how they think. Because I reached a stage in the journey where, unlike all these sort of young Muslims that are coming that are being useful for the political narrative, but they're still early in their careers, so you can control them. I reached a stage where my shows are getting Golden Globe nominations, Emmy nominations. I'm getting press articles. People know I exist. They're like, this guy could actually alter some of the way we're presenting the Middle East, talking about Israel, Palestine, talking about Iraq, right? We don't want that. And this guy's a real threat to that. And so it's that straightforward, because I reached a place where I became an immediate target. Like, we cannot let this guy advance. And by God's grace, I've still advanced. But it's an obstacle when you got people of that caliber saying, I ain't going to hire that guy. Oh, I know he's good for this. He's too good for this. I mean, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's been my personal journey.
Okay, that makes for a tough environment, man, but it makes you like a real survivor.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, one thing I'll say is, and I know you will understand this as an entrepreneur. Muslims talk about tawakkul, trusting in God. You don't got trust in God until you don't know where your paycheck's coming from, right?
Yeah, man.
then you have tawakkul. Then you understand, okay, God, you're going to solve this. I can't solve it.
Absolutely.
And I know
agree,
you
understand
that.
I do. I know. I mean, man, sometimes it's like I can tell you stories in my past about tawakkul that, it's actually I've written it in my little autobiography. I just need to finish that thing. Anyway, we'll talk about it later.
I love to hear your stories. I mean, I like everyone in Hollywood. I'm a narcissist. I'll tell my stories until you stop me, man.
I'll help you look at it. Maybe you can take a look at it. You tell me what you think.
I'll be happy to look at your autobiography and give you my thoughts. Yeah.
But it's got some good stuff in there about tawakkul. I mean, you really need that. That's something that a lot of people like underrate, and I think this is a problem. One of the biggest problems, we were talking about this earlier, also with Rollo Tomasi and everything, in the portrayal of Islam, is that a lot of people they're just plain and simply ignorant of Islam and Muslims. You know, and there's so many concepts within Islam that will actually help guys out in their lives. You know, if they would just like kind of open their eyes and not be blinded by what is the word I'm looking for? Propaganda.
Propaganda, it's nationalism, it's group dynamic. You know, it's frustrating for them that the group they don't think that they're part of has these solutions where their group is struggling to figure stuff out. I mean, but they don't understand. For us as Muslims, you're already Muslim, man. You ain't out of the group. Everyone's born Muslim. Everyone's born with a clean fitrah. You know, you were raised to believe X, Y, and Z, religious or belief. But you were born a Muslim. You're already in the group, man. You ain't fighting nothing. You know, you're just telling yourself you're out of the group.
I actually had a one-on-one the other day. I think it was yesterday. No, it was yesterday. I did a one-on-one, and a guy was asking me about Islam, and we were talking about this, like the fitrah and everything, because he made a statement that was actually related directly to the fitrah. To anybody who's watching and doesn't know what the fitrah is the natural state or condition that a person's born in. And I was explaining to him how everyone was basically, raised up in front of Allah with their father Adam watching over them next to Allah, and Allah basically said, "This is your progeny," and that they all swore on that day that they would worship Allah, and then they'd be sent here to earth to be tested, and I was just telling them about like how a statement fit into the fitrah, into the natural state that people are, ingrained with and born with.
Our primordial covenant in the Quran, where all of us stood before God and said, "You are our Lord."
Yeah, that's really good stuff. Yeah, man.
Well, but I said this to you before we came online, but I want to say this as well for your viewers. I really admire the work that you're doing, because you've been able to be a unique voice right now at a pivotal moment in history, especially a pivotal moment where online social media, there's a lot of conversation going about men, women, and Islam is entering into it. And you've been a pivotal voice to break through a lot of stereotypes, a lot of the propaganda, because, you can bridge it. You're an American. You're a man who chose and embraced Islam, but you were an American long before that, right? So you understand cultural connections, you understand the value, you understand all that, and you can communicate it. And I particularly love the work you did with Rollo Tomasi, someone I've been following for a long time, and who I think from everything I've seen, he's got a good heart, right? He's got an open heart. He wants to see the world as it is. That's why he's willing to talk to you and say, well, tell me how Islam is part of the world as it is. And so it's an important voice you got.
Yeah, it's nice. It was nice to be on with Rolo. Yeah, I think everybody knows I've been following Rolo for a while. Rolo opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I passively knew, but I didn't know actively. And so being on with him was really awesome. I like to see him. I don't know if I'm right, but I kind of consider him something of a purist. You know, it's like while everybody's pushing this way, that way, trying to put in this agenda, that agenda, he's just concerned with the raw information and how it actually looks when it's like basically, what's the word I'm looking for again? I speak German so much, I always forget my English.
Yeah.
How intersexual dynamics socially play out in the world as we see it, according to what he studied and researched. It's just really amazing to watch how all his predictions come true.
Well, he's a follower of praxeology, which is the study of how things actually are, human beings.
Yeah.
I very much follow that philosophy too. I'm very much, when it comes economically, I'm very much a follower of the Austrian school, which is for me the closest school to Islamic economics. Because it understands human nature as it is, and that's his philosophy, at least in intersexual dynamics. And the great thing is, we as Muslims, we recognize that all of this is in the Quran, because the Quran, everything is explained. Even when there's differences in men and women are described, and differences even in their rights are described, there's always an explanation. There's a verse in the Quran that is misunderstood and used by anti-Muslim bigots, say, oh, you guys oppress women, but they don't never read the verse. The famous verse which says, men have rights over women and women have rights over men, but men have a degree above them because they spend of their wealth on them, right? Now, they always stop when the men have a degree above them, and they stop at that point of the verse, rather than saying, well, look, what this is saying is, if you're going to give men rights over women and women rights over men, but you're going to give these men more responsibilities. They have to take care of the family. They have to earn money. A woman in Islam has her own property and her own money. She doesn't have to spend it on children. She doesn't have to spend it on anybody except she can buy jewelry with it and say, well, you feed my kids, not my problem, right? And that's Islam. So that's not her responsibility, and her wealth is her own. And so, but if that's the case, if you're going to give the man this responsibility, you got to take care of yourself, your wife, your kids, you got to put yourself out in battle. She doesn't have to go fight. You have to do it. Then I'm going to give you extra, rights that come with that, while they still have rights over you. That's a rational thing. And what Rolo has pointed out, and you've pointed out, is that in Western society, men now have all the responsibility, none of the authority, none of the rights. So that's going to lead to this breakdown of society, is that if you're going to, whatever group you're going to give the responsibility to, you're going to have to balance it out, because you're putting a gun to their head. So you got to do this stuff. Okay, well, why do I have to do this stuff? All right, well, this is how it's going to work out for you. This is how it's going to work out. I mean, just like in Islam, we have, people again criticize, say men inherit more in Islam, or they inherit twice as much as women. They never know that in Christianity and Judaism of the time of Islam, women had no legal right to inherit anything. They had no legal right to own property. Islam gave them that right.
And men, no rights.
Yeah, exactly. But men were allowed to have more property because it's not their property. It's communal property. It belongs to the wife. It belongs to the kids. So the man has to have more to the woman may have less property, but it's all hers. And spend it with anybody. There's a logic to it.
It's a funny thing, because you find like a lot of I guess MGTOW-minded individuals, some of the red pill community, and definitely the conservative community, they complain about like how Islam gives men absolute authority. And I say it all the time, Islam is a patriarchal religion. We're not apologetic about it, but it's like at the same time they complain about this, they also complain that men in the West have all the responsibility and no authority. Yeah, well, in Islam, we recognize that women automatically don't want authority, and men are given all the responsibility and thus given the authority. And it's just crazy how that they never make the connection between their complaint and, about Islam and the complaint about the West, and how it's like, guys, you're not, what are you talking about?
Again, it's that loyalty to your culture and your family and the tradition you've been raised with. So to go all the way over the bridge of, well, that makes sense to me, I should just go do this, feels like they're betraying their heritage. And, again, everyone has their journey. Allah guides whom he wills. Everyone has a path that Allah has written for them. But, you feel like, okay, you ain't betraying your heritage, man. When you become Muslim, you ain't turning against Jesus. That's the thing. You ain't turning against Moses. You're not losing your heritage. You're just getting on the path that they would have understood and been. Christians have been attacking hijab this last week. I've been seeing on Twitter. I was like, man, Virgin Mary wore hijab. What's your problem? You think she's what? You see any painting of the Virgin Mary showing her flowing hair? You don't have it.
No, it doesn't exist.
I mean, it's your tradition, man. You're not following your own faith, and you're grumbling to us.
Yeah, it's the wildest thing. It's the wildest thing that they don't see the contradiction It just comes from, it just comes from ignorance of their own religion. So there's no way that they can have any sort of knowledge about our own. That's the funniest thing in the world. Like you said, people will actually, this also from that one I had yesterday. It's very interesting because there's a lot of overlap in the topics about ignorance, and there was, we were talking about misinterpretations of the Quran when you were talking about misinterpretation of the Quran. I'll just throw this in there. It may be something someone can benefit from. Is that he said, what's one of the biggest misunderstandings? And is that we want to go out and we want to kill all the non-Muslims.
Wow, and I hear that all the time.
Yeah, and he's like, where did that come from? And I said, well, people read the Quran and they don't understand, like, the interpretation of the Quran is an entire science. Yes, Islam is simple, but at the same time, you just can't go in and read and be like, oh, I know it all. Now, I mentioned to him the verse that the people use, which is where Allah says, and find the disbelievers and kill them wherever you find them, drive them out. And so on and so on. And I was like, what people don't understand is for the Quran, there's two parts of interpretation. One, the specific reason for revelation, and then the general application. And I was like, in this specific verse, the specific reason was when the Muslims went out to fight. Which battle was it? I can't remember. But they went out to fight, and the non-Muslims that were going to fight them.
It was probably Badr, the first battle.
Yeah, where they were outnumbered.
They didn't want to fight. The Quran said, you got to go fight. I don't want to fight. I'm a pacifist, right? Yeah. And so the Quran had these verses,
There was they were outnumbered 3 or 4 to 1 or something like this.
Yeah.
And the people, I think it was the Jewish of Medina who were left behind, they were like, there's no way they're going to win. And they started attacking the women and the children. Yeah. Muslims turned the entire battle around, came home, and these guys had attacked the women, children, old folks. And we know back then, when you captured them, they were your slave. They had no freedom. The women, they just, they're like sex slaves basically. And then that verse was revealed. So that was the specific reason. We went to battle. You thought we were going to lose. We had a peace treaty with you. And we came back. It was like, surprise. And then Allah revealed, wherever you find the disbelievers, attack them, drive them, kill them out, because that's what they did to the women and the children.
Yeah, and it's a very specific, it's a very specific verse against a very specific type of person, right? They ain't talking about your Christian neighbor. It's talking about somebody who broke a treaty with you, attacked you, and tried to kill your women and children, right? Yeah. When you made peace with them. So, but again, because they don't understand context, and unfortunately, there's Muslims out there that like the ISIS guys, they don't want context either, right? And so that's the thing. The Quran is that it's there, but even if one does not have the scholarly knowledge of all of the historical thing, the thing is the Quran itself covers it. There's so many verses that say, do not let a hatred for people make you commit injustice or go outside the bounds of the religion. So if you've read that verse, you read this, okay, well, that verse is living in that verse. So the context is in the Quran, even for a simple person. You have to ignore it because you don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's just the problem with so many people, they just go into stuff and they think they're gonna read it like some common book that they pick up on at Barnes and Nobles or something, and it's not always that simple. Yeah, it's a real problem. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, the great thing is we now have 14 centuries of Muslim application of Sharia. We understand it. Whenever I saw it yesterday on Twitter, someone's like, every country where Muslims come, the Christians are killed, Jews are killed. What are you talking about? Look at your history. Yeah. Muslims, Christians, Jews living together 14 centuries. Islamic Spain. Islamic Spain. The Jews are the prime ministers, right? Ottoman Turkey, Baghdad, Morocco still has a big Jewish community. So every time you look at history, when the Christians conquered Muslim lands, they killed everybody. They killed the brown-skinned Muslims, the brown-skinned Christians. So I'm like, that's a history, man. So you're telling me Islam is this? We got 14 centuries of practical application of it. So obviously you're making stuff up.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at, if we go into historical bloodshed, good God, man, it's like, Muslims aren't really out there spreading as much as they like to make it out to.
And that's the amazing thing is, I was reading a fascinating book on history of warfare, and it was talking about how Muslims were really one of the first to have established rules of war. At the time in the 7th century, the Byzantines killed women and children, massacred the whole village. These were Christians. They didn't care. Jesus had nothing to do with it. We got to do what we got to do, right? And Muslims are coming in. We will not kill women. We will not kill children. We will not kill priests and rabbis. We will not burn monasteries. We won't poison wells. We won't burn trees. People are like, what?
Won't kill cattle and livestock. Yeah.
People are like, what is this? We established rules of war because before that, the rule of war is do whatever you want to do. And that's the rule of the Bible. You kill. If you read the Old Testament, they're just killing women, children, babies, and it's like there's no rule of war.
Well, they talked about, a lot of people misinterpret the history of Islam and it's massive and very rapid spread. And they're like, oh, it was spread through the sword. Kinda. Yeah, we fought battles, and then when we showed up and didn't kill everybody in the village, everybody was like, what the heck are these guys doing? They're not killing everybody. They're not raping the women. What's going on here? And then people started just becoming Muslim just based off of the manners and the way that Muslims waged war. And that's why Islam spread so fast. You can't have an army big enough to go from like the walls of China to Europe. There's just not an army that large.
Within 100 years.
Yeah, and it's impossible.
And what's amazing is that the Middle East remained predominantly Christian for several centuries after the Muslim conquest. Muslims were a minority. Egypt was Christian until like the 10th or 11th century. Majority was Coptic. And that Muslims have ruled it for 400 years. So we ain't forcibly converted nobody, right? Yeah. I mean, that was a historical process where people eventually embraced the religion as the majority of the culture. But Muslims were like, hey, man, you pay your taxes, we leave you alone. We don't care.
Yeah,
right?
We're good. That's it. So, man, we've been hammering on that for a minute. Let me ask you. We talked about Rollo Tomassi and everything. You're sort of like in the red pill scene. What's going on there? What's your?
I got to be careful what I say because I'm sure my adversaries in Hollywood will use it against me. But people in Hollywood already they've already pretty much established that those who don't want to work with me have pretty much said it openly. I don't want to work with you. So being conservative on these issues is they already got 1,000 others to come up against me. But look, I mean, there's, one of the biggest issues is confusion right now in American Western civilization about male-female dynamics. Right now, we're even confused about male and female, right? Because now there's 100 genders. And I mean, it's just like, we're at a place where Hollywood is promoting all kinds of stuff that the average person of any culture would go, man, that don't sound right to me. It's not my experience, right? And you're beginning to get a backlash against it. I actually, I'm a very big Star Wars fan. I've been very critical of the recent Star Wars movies. And the reason I use that example is that was an example of where there was a turning point, actually, where, they created these, I don't know if you've watched these Star Wars movies under Disney, they've created all these mediocre movies. In particular, The Last Jedi was garbage. And the issue that pissed people off was that the heroine of these movies, it wasn't that she was a heroine. It's that she was this all-powerful woman. No, don't need no man. All the men are losers and idiots. And people who are Star Wars fans like, hey man, you had Princess Leia, you had Padme Amidala, you had all these strong women who never disrespected a man. You had strong women, strong men. And then Hollywood tried to shove this into Star Wars, and that's when people said, I had enough. And so I watched this in the past. It's actually since Joker came out. In the last 6 months, since Joker came out, Hollywood made an aggressive effort to try to stifle that film because it's a white man lead, it's promoting incel ideology, all this other nonsense that it wasn't about. And then it made $1 billion. And I was like, wait a minute. And Star Wars losing money, all these people, like maybe the world doesn't want this extremist leftist ideology, particularly about men and women. Maybe it just doesn't want it. And now they're getting to a place where the pendulum is swinging. They realize, man, we just got to maybe give to people what actual culture reflects, not try to change culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying this for a while. I was asked last year, I believe it was on Dude Party. I was asked about my predictions, and my predictions is that there's going to be a pretty hard snapback. I don't think we're going to see like blood in the streets, but it's going to be a very sudden and a very rapid snapback into reality. I don't know what it's going to take or what's going to be the catalyst, the actual trigger for it, but it's just people are like you said, people are up to here, and there's nowhere else for it to go. It's eventually just going to spill out of their mouths, and it's going to spill out into other places. People are tired, when
I knew Trump was coming, or someone like Trump, right? I knew someone like Trump was coming about a year in the last year of Obama, just before the election process started, when they started getting to such extreme leftist social positions, right? Where Obama was pushing, we got to have trans bathrooms for kids and in like elementary school. I'm like, man, I was like, people ain't there, man. People ain't there. People, you want to transition as an adult. I think most people are whatever. You go do what you got to do, right?
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's true in the Muslims too. And it's just like, but you're not pushing this for kids. And I said, this is going to lead to somebody who's going to be at least perceived as a dam against this extreme social transformation that they're trying to do. And the Trump played that role. I got my own critiques of him, but he played that role for those people, and they voted thinking that's what they got, right? And I'll tell you what the actual catalytic moment was on where social agendas are now changing. It was actually a few weeks ago, J.K. Rowling put out that tweet.
Yeah.
Again, UK, as you know, UK is going to a very extreme place about trans rights, right? Where basically you can't even question it, becomes, the worst form of racism. And now, and even liberals and leftists like, man, but is because now the ideology is men and women don't exist. And if you're a man and you just say I'm a woman, but I got a beard, you don't make any effort to even transform or take hormones, you're a woman because you say it. And people are like, man, what does it mean to be a woman then? And J.K. Rowling said, dress any way you want, love whoever you want, but a woman is a biological reality. And that was a crack, because this is a major part of liberal global culture. J.K. Rowling said, I've had enough, right? I'm a woman. A guy saying he's a woman doesn't make him a woman. He could be a trans person, but he ain't a woman, right?
Yeah.
And then hundreds of thousands of people came to her side, millions of people. And then people said, wait a minute, maybe the discourse has gotten to a very extreme place where someone who's the big leftist, voice is now saying, I've had enough, right? And that's where I felt the pendulum start to swing.
Yeah, I was writing down some things not to forget here. When you mentioned the Joker and how much it's made, and how Star Wars is like just basically like, bleeding or venting money, I would personally say that would be a good sign of the upcoming election also. We're looking at like culturally, socially, what their proclivity is. They are leaning towards a film like the Joker, like you said, they try to say it's an incel, this, that, promoting, incel violence, whatever else. But that's what's making money, because that's what people are interested in. That's what people want to see. And so how is it possible that that's going to make a profit? And then the leftist ideology, women are great, men are trash, is basically venting, money like a space shuttle hit with a meteorite in space, vents atmosphere. How is it the case that you're going to have a situation where that's not going to play out in politics also? It's impossible.
Of course. And, the unfortunate reality is, like I said, I'm not a Trump fan, but I'm looking at the Democratic candidates. I'm like, man, you guys haven't figured that out yet, huh? None of you figured out where the train is going, right? No. This guy who I don't really like has figured out where the train's going. And so, Andrea, maybe my career will continue on with this guy in power. I don't know.
they're gonna be in for a surprise again. They keep on thinking they're gonna have this, and just like they're surprised the Joker made so much money, just like they're surprised when Trump won, they're gonna be surprised when he wins again. Yeah. Another thing you were talking about there was with the trans thing and the people in like the lack of gender, or the so many genders. What is that? Is it the lack of genders, or is it because we have a lack of genders because there's so many?
Well, that's the thing. You brought it full circle, and and again, it's very controversial to say this, because in Hollywood, you have to take the extreme leftist position on this. And like I said, my position is very clear. I treat every human being with respect. If you feel in your mind that you are of a different sex and you want to use modern, scientific techniques to alter that, you go on your journey, man. I got nothing to say to you, right? I wish you peace, right? But I got issues with children being given hormones, and I got issues with that. I got issues with facilitating bathrooms where women feel threatened. I got issues with that, right? And so, but that's actually too conservative for Hollywood. And this video may be used against me in the future, but it's my honest belief, and I'll defend it. But where it's gone full circle is that, as I tried to explain to you, I said, right now, where the extremist ideology of that has gone is that there's no such thing as male. There's no such thing as female. It's all subjective identity, which you can change. You can be male today, you can be female tomorrow, whatever you want. So I said, well, if that's the case, then there's no such thing as trans either, because trans is transitioning from one to the other, right? So it eventually goes, 1,000 genders goes to zero. It's dividing by zero. You get to nothing, right? And that's where it's going, and reaches the point where it becomes meaningless. Like, I tried to have this conversation with an extreme trans activist who was fighting J.K. Rowling. I said, well, so, I have a friend who's a gay man. Is he a lesbian or is he a gay man? What is he, right? And then they started getting angry. I said, but because the gay community is like, well, you're saying we don't exist because, our gender isn't real, so I can't actually be a gay man or a lesbian, or I'm not. I mean, now you're having the arguments where lesbian women who are butch women saying, well, I'm not woman because I'm not feminine, the way you're defining that, because once you start going down this path, there's no way to define a woman beyond physical body that God gave them, right? And gametes. And so it's going to a place where it's all meaningless.
Yeah. I mean, they have to jump through increasingly higher and more complex intellectual, psychological loops in order to justify the position in their stance. Yeah. Which brings me to another thing. You were talking about the attack on J.K. Rowling. you know, with the trans subject and order. Did you
Yeah.
see anything? Did you see that that recent incident where that young guy, he's actually a gay guy, was protesting trans library readings to children, and he got bullied online so much that he committed suicide.
Yeah, do whatever you want to do. Leave the kids out of it. Leave the kids out of it. It's very simple. Leave the kids out of it. If they're 18 and they want to go down this path, go down the path, right? But you ain't. What is this stuff? And so, and what's happening now is you're having people of the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community saying, "I ain't part of this," right? You know, and I think Dave Chappelle actually made a joke about that. He was talking, Dave Chappelle and his, our fellow Muslim, right? Dave Chappelle, he was talking about how, they're the ones in the car, there's the LGBT car, and you got the gay guys, the lesbian women, you got the bisexuals, and then they're all looking at the trans person like, are you in this car? Right? And so, I mean, what car are you in, right? And where's this car going, right? And so, and again, this is, we Muslim, the thing is, what people don't understand, Islam is actually very sophisticated on this. We had an intersex definition of the Sharia 14 centuries ago because Allah, Allah creates hermaphrodites. He creates, it's a 0.02% of the population, but he does create people with both sex organs and then there's a whole Islamic methodological process to define whether they're male or female because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, do not oppress them, do not hurt them, but choose male or female. And based on these criteria, you can determine from early on if you're male or female and then give them that classification and away you go, and there's no confusion, right? We had this 14 centuries ago. So, I don't want to hear nothing about Islam is anti-trans, anti-this, right? Yeah, I mean, we had this 14 centuries ago, and it's in our religion. So, that's why I don't have patience for garbage like this.
Yeah, true trans. Which brings us to another thing. It's kind of funny because a lot of the MGTOW scene, they like to say that Islam's not an exception, that we're going to be, taken over by feminism, this, that, the other. And it's funny, we do actually have feminist issues in Islam, but we don't have the issue of like these feminist sisters saying a woman isn't a woman and a man isn't a man. It's just not a problem that we have in terms of feminism.
They're on the very fringes. Like you've got, people who are like, yeah, I'm Muslim, but I don't know anything about the religion, like Jamila Jamil, right? Okay, you got her, like that actress. She's an actress. She's out there she was very anti J.K. Rowling, but she's an actress. She's a wannabe actress, right, on the fringes of society, and she's vaguely Jamila Jamil, right? She's like an actress, comedian, whatever. And she's got a big following on the internet, but obviously from her name, she comes from a Muslim background. But those are again on the fringes. I try to explain to people, these people are on the fringes of the community. They ain't having, you don't know who she is. They're having no impact on the discourse. So I saw people saying, well, who are you to define Islam? I said, well, I'm Muslim, but aside from that, let's look at who's having the impact. You're saying that these extreme leftists, extreme feminist types are the true Muslims. I'm like, yeah, but they're having no impact on the, people don't even know who they are, right? They're on the fringes of it. And so because Islam has always been balanced, because Islam has always had a conversation about women's rights from 14 centuries ago, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, was a gentle, nurturing, sensitive man who liked to clean his house and mend his clothes, right? Who loved the company of women, not just sexually, but as he loved their gentle energy, right? Because we've had this conversation, this extreme feminist crap can't penetrate us because we haven't gone to extremes about it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about Islam. It seems like it balances that out. So even when we do get an extreme, we have a few extreme feminists, but I mean, it gets to the point where everyone, be they knowledgeable to the ignorant, starts to question their Islam. I mean, there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he said, he basically said that, I think it was Daniel Hikakatu or Hikakatu. I can't say his name.
Yeah, I know the guy. He's always out there. He's always talking stuff. I know that guy.
And he coined the statement that feminism is the gateway drug to disbelief for Muslim women. And I have to 100% agree. There comes a point where it's like, they're going to have to pick a team and they're going to have to like decide, I'm either going to be Muslim or I'm going to be feminist, but I can't be both because there's too many contradictions in feminism and Islam for them to actually say that I'm going to call myself a follower and a practitioner, someone who believes in Islam, and then also hold ideas which are 100 completely, the antithesis of everything that Islam, represents and says and states. It's so
they can't sustain it. Eventually they become isolated, and they, a lot of them eventually just become murtads. Apostates. And I got no respect for murtads. I believe, just like the Quran says, to you your religion, to me mine. But I personally have no respect for a murtad. Someone who, I've studied all the world's religions in depth. Like I've studied Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and Hinduism, and I respect them for all the good they have to offer. I also believe Islam works, right?
Yeah.
And for you to leave it means you don't understand it at all. It means you don't know what you got. You got the instruction manual for life, and you'd rather just bumble through it and listen to people who got a faulty manual, right? And you're gonna learn. And every murtad I've ever met, they're not happier people. In fact, they're more obsessed with Islam than Muslims are.
Yeah, they are.
You were from I believe a Catholic family once, right?
Yeah, Roman Catholic.
And you don't sit. I don't ever see you talking crap about Catholicism or Christianity. You never even talk about it. Like you talk about Islam, but it's these people who leave Islam they talk about it more than whatever they believe. I'm like, because they can't get it out of their head. Their fitra, their primordial nature is saying, "Hey man, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And it won't leave them alone.
Islam is their identity, and they can't give it up. And you made a very good point there. It's very true. It's like I personally believe accepting Islam was the best thing that happened to me in my life. That's why I don't harp on about Catholicism, because I left it behind. I'm at better now. So I'm living better now, and I'm doing better now. I'm showing people, hey, this is better. And this is something I always say to these people who spend all this time attacking Islam. It's like, if you are so happy being non-Muslim, why are you talking about Islam? I forgot about Catholicism unless someone asked me about it. I don't want to insult the people. I'm not insulting religion, but to me, Catholicism is so insignificant now at this point in my life because I'm so happy being a Muslim. I don't need to talk about it. Oh, well, they told me to eat the flesh of Christ, those darn cannibals. They say the craziest things in Catholicism. I'm happy. I don't need to talk about your
thing. Yeah, you go do your thing because you found what's working for you. And I've never met, not that I know a lot of apostates, but the few that I've ever come across, murtads, they are unhappy people. They're miserable. They're obsessed. It's like obsessive compulsive disorder. It's like, man, I mean, you found a better path. Why aren't you on that path? Why I never hear anything good out of your mouth about anything? It's just about Islam songs. Let me point this verse in the Quran. I'm like, man, what's wrong with you? And the thing is, what is happening is Allah is using them, because Allah uses the adversaries of Islam to promote it. That's what all these anti-Muslim bigots don't understand. The more you talk about it, the more you're spreading it. The more people go, is that right? Well, I got this Muslim friend of mine, my doctor, my dentist is a Muslim. You don't seem like that bad a guy. Let me look into this. I mean, you're being used in the same way that the Meccan infidels were being used to strengthen Islam. Abu Jahl, the worst enemy of. There's a great story about how, in the early days of Islam in Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, was having these private meetings in Khadija's house, right, with just a few people hearing about it, right, and people didn't know what was going on. And Abu Jahl, the worst enemy, would stand in the marketplace in Mecca and say, "Stay away from this Muhammad. He's preaching this stuff. Stay away." People are like, "Who's Muhammad? What's this all about?" And they go to his house. I mean, he wasn't doing open dawah. He wasn't spreading. He was doing it privately. Abu Jahl was doing open dawah.
That's how Abu Dhar al-Ghafari became Muslim in his entire tribe. I mean, basically, he heard about him, and then he was like, "Well, let me go check him out." And then he became Muslim. Then he went to his people, and he was like, his people became Muslim. So I mean, that's exactly how. That's true. But this reminds me of a statement a French politician said, and I can't remember her name because I don't memorize politicians' names and all this stuff. But she was saying, if you don't have a political message, she was talking about France in specific, but this is probably true around the world. She said, if you don't have a specific political message, but you're in politics, she's like, the number one way to get elected is to attack Islam and Muslims.
Of course.
And it's the same thing with these Murtad guys. It's their claim to fame, it's their paycheck, and they're just trying to cash in on it, Yeah,
and then they eat fire in their belly, right? They eat fire in their belly, and that's it. And it's like, you go down this path, when I see people arguing with the Murtads on Twitter, I'm like, moment I see Murtad, instant block, because there's a curse on them. I've never met a Murtad psychologically stable, not once. There's always something seriously wrong with them. I'm just like, I want to be around this person. I ain't gonna cause you any problems. I just want you block, done.
Absolutely. I see this in my comments a lot. People start arguing, and they'll be arguing with someone, and they'll start attacking Muhammad, peace be upon him, or they'll start attacking Islam. I just block them. I don't give an explanation. I don't say, "Hey, I'm blocking you because of this." I just block them because I don't want anything to do with you. Don't be trying to use my platform or my, some tweet that I made to try and start, bad mouthing the Prophet. That's it. I'm just gonna block you.
Well, I watched your first conversation with Rollo on YouTube, and the comments were just insane. And I tried to engage a few people, but then what I noticed started happening is the non-Muslims were telling them to shut up. Like, man, let him talk, man. Yeah, if people were getting fed up with the negativity of the anti-Muslim bigots on that YouTube comment feed on your video. People were saying, man, be quiet. Be quiet. I want to hear this. I don't want to, I mean, I like this guy. I like what he has to say. Maybe his religion doesn't suck, right? I'm like, I don't have to do this battle. Let these guys fight it out amongst themselves.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. That was my first time ever going on like a StreamYard cast. So I didn't see the comments. I literally didn't see them. I was just focusing on the entire thing. Didn't see I was like, what is going on here? It was all these like screens and buttons and stuff. I just said, you know, screw it. Let me focus on the interview here. And I didn't see a single comment. And I haven't been back actually to watch it and then watch the live comments either. So
it's not with the comments. There's nothing positive there. I mean, you presented your point of view. I hope you go back on Rollo's channel. I mean, that was such a powerful interview because I've been following Rollo for years. I thought his commentary on intersexual dynamics was accurate before he was even able to say it out loud, right? And so but I would always notice whenever on his blog I would comment, well, Islam solves this problem, Rollo, in this way. I would get attacked by 1,000 anti-Muslim bigots on his blog. And but I was like, we just need, because Rollo seems like a reasonable guy looking for truth. We just need a Muslim voice to present truth to him. And doesn't mean he's going to become Muslim, excuse me, but it means that he's going to present the point of view authentically, because his point of view is, let's talk honestly about intersexual dynamics. Oh, this is what Islam believes. And a lot of it fits. In fact, all of it fits what I've been saying. I got to put it out there. And you did that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that's also not really talked about in the red pill sphere in general. It's just they've got a big anti type of mentality. That's why you have the black manosphere, because I mean, basically there was a point where there's like so many racists within the red pill scene that, black guys was like, this isn't for us. And so they made the black manosphere. And then now we have
Chateau Artiste. It was an interesting place. And then it just became KKK. Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I finally posted. I was like, man, why you guys so jealous of the black man? Why? Well, you're all just jealous of him. Why are you talking so much about him? You're just jealous of him. You want to be a black man.
Yeah. It's wild, man. And it doesn't really benefit them, to actually do that. This is one of the reasons why basically women are running over men in general. It's that, like, that intergroup, I'm going to stick with my group, and then the sisters got the sisterhood. And then guys aren't basically like saying, hey, you know what, we're in this little sinking ship together. Maybe we should be, bailing water together or paddling together to get to shore. But no, guys are just.
I mean, look, all this is happening. The funny thing is the right wing anti-Muslim bigots are right. Islam is going to take Europe and America, inshallah. There's no way to stop it. There's no way to stop it. You have no defense against it, because even now you see these trad cons, out there, like, trying to fix Christianity. I was like, you're done, man. You guys are finished. And Allah's using this to spread. Allah's using feminism. He's using your inner social chaos, and he's going to present you the instruction manual and the solution to your problems. And you know where you're going to stop it.
No, you're absolutely right. There is no fixing Christianity. I actually did a video about this also. I don't know. I can't remember the title of it, but I said something to the effect of why learn a broken or a damaged religion. And that video is still up. I talked about that. It's like, the Christian churches, all of them, they started with, like, the female pastors. They started with the homosexual pastors, homosexual marriage and all this type of stuff, same-sex marriage. So it's like, the tenets of Christianity are gone. They
ain't coming back.
How are you going to fix that? It's gone. It's just disappeared. It's like trying to say you're going to fix a wooden shed, but the wooden shed is burned down and you don't have wood. What are you going to build it out of the charcoal ash? What are you going to do? It's gone.
Well, I saw this comment once that always stayed with me, which is, feminism is the ultimate shit test, right? We talk in the red pill about women shit testing men. We've all experienced it. Honestly, I failed a lot of them, because, I still play by a lot of Muslim rules of chivalry, which don't work in this culture. But, I'm like, well, okay, you ain't playing by those rules, right? I thought I was doing the Salahuddin. Oh, you just gonna slap me in the face okay, I get it now. All right. But the shit test, right? So the shit test, what it is the way it's you can talk from it from an evolutionary standpoint. Is the woman's trying to test, is this a man strong or is he weak? So feminism was a shit test for Europe and the shit test for America. And instead of challenging it on any kind of intellectual, men in Europe and America just collapsed to it. They just collapsed to it. They accepted it. And women said, well, I don't respect you. You actually bought into this thing. I don't actually respect you for groveling to me. And what's happening is those women are now marrying Muslim men, right? I mean, because you failed the shit test. And so Allah said, okay, we're going to now, this is the avenue in. And there ain't no way to stop that because this shit test was failed 3 generations ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember the context that I used to always say it. I haven't seen it in a while, but I used to always say it in the context when I was like debating with guys, back when I used to debate with guys about Islam and the treatment of women and Western treatment of women. And I used to always say guys are always white knighting for their women, but there's no benefit to it, you know, and
the woman doesn't respect you, you don't get what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
All these white knights are just trying to get the girl in bed.
Yeah,
let's get.
I'm like,
here, right?
Yeah, I'm like, your women are running you over, and you're attacking me. I'm not the one running you over. You know, Muslims aren't running you over. Your women are running you over. So why are you attacking us Muslims? What do we got to do with your chaos over there? And yeah, you're right. It's not getting them laid. So,
you know, I want to be careful how I say this, but I worked on a TV show once which had a lot of very, very powerful, passionate feminist women, and we had one of the bosses was one of these weak beta male types, right? And he had been put in there by the studio because he had all these young, inexperienced women who had authority on the show because of the political moment, right? And but the studio sort of knew these people are actually not experienced in running a TV show. Let's bring this experienced man in. And instead of doing his job, which is male, female set aside, just doing his job, which is I'm the experienced person who's going to rein in inexperience. He was so afraid as a white male to stand up to the women in the office that he just let it turn into this crazy. It was like Mean Girls. And I even said that to him. I said, boss, we've turned into Mean Girls, where it's devolving to junior high school behavior on a professional TV show, where all there is gossip and backstabbing and this and that. We're trying to make a TV show here. I've never seen anything like it. And, you know, I ended up leaving the show and, you know, that chaos ain't gotten better. I mean, because he didn't have the strength to stop it because he's so afraid as a white male to stand up because I'm going to be a white male. I was like, man, you were put in this position to restrain these people, even though they didn't want to say it out loud. They didn't want to say, we know these are young, immature women, you know, in the millennials who are running this thing and they ain't ready for this. But we got to give them a job for political reasons. And your job is to make sure they don't get out of control. And you didn't do your job.
That's one of the problems with cancel culture. It makes it so that people become powerless. And this is one of the biggest things I catch heat for from both Muslims and non-Muslims. It's like I say all the time, you have to train your women, and they can't be left to their own devices. They have to be regulated because women are like these chaotic balls of energy, and that's not a bad thing. That's
it's
how
like
they
the
were
raging
made.
river, man. It's like the raging river. It can give life, it can destroy, or you know, you can create a dam that uses it to light up a city, right?
Exactly. It has to be channeled in the proper way so that it brings benefit to everything. You know, like that raging water, man. It's a class. That's a good one, man. It's like, you know, if you don't channel the water right and don't make irrigation for your fields, there's no fertile land. And women are the same way. If you don't regulate their behaviors, we see this now with like birth control, that if you don't regulate their behavior, fertility rates drop. I mean, okay, that's a very direct, you know, translation of the situation, but really they have to be regulated. They have to be controlled. I'm not saying that they.
And even in modern culture, women can't say that out loud. In wild Western culture, but you know, most women want a strong, confident leader, man. You know, because they recognize they've been given a barakah by Allah, which is this incredible energy, which is emotion, which is life force, right? It's energy. They have much more emotional depth than we can as men get to, right? But that emotion can become all-consuming. It can become destructive, right? They know that intuitively, and Allah has created the male to be able to restrain his own emotion and restrain the emotion of the environment around him. And if a male doesn't do that job, they know that they're hurting themselves, right? They know that they are injuring themselves with this, but they are being true to themselves, which is to rage the emotion, right? Yeah. And there's no wall to restrain it. And then they don't want that either.
Yeah. You know, I mean, and that's the thing. That's what's funny is like, there's no cause for restraint, for female emotional restraint. I mean, I always make this comparison. What is to male sexuality, or what is male sexuality is female emotion. So male sexuality, I mean, we know as men, if we were given free reign, we would bang everything we could get our hands on.
Absolutely.
Unrestricted. We wouldn't stop until we hit like the 3.5 billion women in the planet, or actually there's probably not 3.5 billion bangable worth, but if there's about 2.9 out there that you probably bang, you know, you probably be like, let's just do it. So male sexuality, unregulated, it has its set of problems.
Yeah.
And in men, it can lead to a type of nihilism in regards to women and their nature. And with women, it's the same thing with their emotion. Unrestricted female emotion leads to problems within women, and that leads to them to have their emotional damage, which makes it so that they can't pair bond properly. And we have this situation, like I said, where men are expected to restrict their sexuality, but women are not expected to restrict their emotions. But it's possible, because men can restrict their sexuality, and I see it with my women, that they can restrict their emotion.
Of course.
Where's the call?
We're not animals. We're not animals. And, that's the thing of Allah made us men and women. He says in the Quran, he made us men and women. He made us different. The perfection of Islam is this. It doesn't give you an impossible ideal you can't follow, which I would argue many versions of Christianity do. People say, well, Jesus never had, in their version, Jesus never had a wife, never had children, right? He was celibate. So I can't do that. So you got an icon, an ideal you can't even live up to, so don't bother to try, right? Whereas it recognizes human nature as it is, and then says, here's a path to become better, right? You can follow that path. The example, I said, my novel about Aisha, may God be pleased with her. Aisha was on her negative side by her own admission and by the Islamic sources. Had the dark side of the female within her. She was vengeful. She was emotional. She was jealous. She used to walk around late at night, sneaking around to see where the prophet was because she didn't want him to be with the other wives, right? I mean, she had all these immaturities, right? And yet at the same time, she gave us 50% of our hadith, right? I mean, she had this photographic memory that gave us this incredible insight of the prophet's life, peace be upon him. And she was able to transcend her emotions. She got involved in the civil war. She later repented, regretted of it. It shows. That's why I used her as the main character of my novel. You have this side of you. You can be better. Islam says, okay, we accept you're at this place. Now here's a way up, right? Whereas many other religions, they set an impossible goal, say, well, you can't make it there, so do what you got to do, right? I mean, that doesn't improve you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Just in case anybody wants to know the reference to that story, Aisha radiallahu anha, it was nighttime, and the Prophet Muhammad, it was her night, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had several wives, and he went out at night, and she followed him, and he ended up going, I think it was to the edge of the city. I can't remember the story exactly. I'm going to paraphrase the story. And he made his hand, he started making supplication. He was supplicating for the people of Daus, and then he turned around to come home, and she was like surprised, and she started running home, and he started chasing the shadow, And then she got home, and she was in bed like, and he was asking, like, "What's up with you? Why are you breathing heavy?" And so this is the story he's talking about.
Yeah, that's why I wrote this novel, because it's such a human story, and these are human beings, and you look at them and go, I recognize their humanity, their emotions, but they're still trying to aim for me to be a better person, right? And that's why Islam is always gonna work, because it's just, this is how Allah made you, and this is the path He's shown you to be better. There's a beautiful verse in the Quran where in translation it says, God created man in the highest of forms, and then He falls to the lowest of the low, except those who have faith and do good works. So we are creating this primordial level. This world makes us drop to this darker level of animalistic side, and then we have a chance to go back up.
Yeah. Absolutely. I forgot the Arabic of the verse. Something Asan and Taqweem, that mankind was made in the best of forms. He's made in the best of form. That's absolutely. What is? I had another question somewhere. What was it, man? I can't find it now.
We got any of your super chats. I'm happy to answer anything coming in from your. I wish I understood the super chat, man. I need to make some money. I got to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I think it has to be activated, because it actually asked me to apply for it. So it's like, I'm not really sure. That's what I was reading before we came on, and I was just like, let's just get on here. I was like reading, like, what's going on here?
You just lost $50, man. I'm sure you had a bunch of super chats.
I know, right? Ouch.
Okay, so
we've been on for an hour. Let's talk about your work again. So if people want to buy your material, where can they get it?
Like I said, I'll show them again. These are my novels. They're available on Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com. Mother of the Believers, which is about the birth of Islam from the point of view of Aisha. May God be pleased with her, the Prophet's wife, peace be upon him. And my novel, Shadow the Swords, which is about the Third Crusade between Richard the Lionheart and Salahuddin, the great Muslim hero, which is an incredibly epic tale. And so those are my 2 novels that are out there. You know, I've got TV shows out there that you can get. Again, you can go to Amazon Prime. You can watch Sleeper Cell, which is still one of the most accurate representations of the war on terror and Muslims who are fighting the war on terror. And you know, and I've got a lot of stuff going on. I just I finished up this TV show recently on the CW, Roswell, New Mexico, and so that you can watch that. But you know, I've got a bunch of shows that I'm currently developing. Like I said, in the current Trump era, my career's back, and so you know, the current shows I'm developing, I'm working on a huge epic series set in the Ottoman Empire, like a big dramatic epic series about the first queen of the Ottomans, a true story of this Ukrainian slave girl named Alexandra, who was captured and sold to the harem of the Ottoman Sultan, and she ended up outsmarting 300 other women in the harem to become the first queen. And so it's her tale, and show's called Sultana, and we're working on selling that, inshallah, to a place like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. I'm also working on a series set in Islamic Spain. You know, I actually have 2 different series. From 2 different studios I've worked with me. One is actually, you know, I know you spent time in the Emirates. And so there's Image Nation, which is the big Middle Eastern film and TV studio. I just wrote last year a series for them, 10 episodes, set in the beginning of the Moors, when the first Muslims arrived in the 700s. And it's essentially the Moors versus the Visigoths who ruled Spain at the time. And so it's about the founding of Cordoba. The show's called Cordoba. And it's about how Muslims established this beautiful civilization. I've also been developing a separate series, set at the end of Islamic Spain in 1480s, about the fall of the Muslims and the conquest of Granada by Ferdinand and Isabella. And it's about how the Muslims lost, you know, their central guidance. You know, the Muslims, a lot of what's happening in history right now, the Muslims had all this power in Islamic Spain, and it was their infighting that destroyed them, right? Yeah. And so and it was, you know, they lost this entire beautiful peninsula where they had this incredible culture of art and science, and it wasn't the Reconquista, it wasn't the Catholics that defeated them. They defeated themselves, and the Catholics just walked in and took what was left. And there's my website on your screen.
Yeah. I was actually going on my channel to actually, because I can't, when I try and look from my screen, then it changes the screen. So I just actually wanted to look that it's displaying properly. So they're actually seeing your website right there. Yeah, you guys check out his website, KamranPasha.com. Yeah. I've linked your Twitter and your website here, so guys, check them out. Anything else you want to add in there?
No, I mean, I just want to say thank you for bringing me onto the show. I really admire and appreciate the work that you're doing. I think God is using you to present very important points of view in an environment where we haven't had that point of view. So you've been a voice for this, and hopefully this will add to that point of view. And hopefully my enemies in Hollywood won't be, you know, screenshotting a lot of this and saying, "Oh, this is what he said about gay people or about trans people." I mean, who knows? Allah's my protector.
That's right. Tawakkul. And yeah, you'll be all right, man. You'll be all right. We'll get the brothers on your side.
It's all good, brother. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to catch up to you. You know, you're the Casanova of the Muslims, man. You're unstoppable, mashallah.
I wanted to ask you about that. Are you married? What's going on, man?
No. The thing is, I'm a single man. Alhamdulillah, I'm taking care of my mom. She stays with me, you know, and my dad passed away about 10 years ago, and my mom spends a lot of time with me. I'm just focusing right now. Thank you. It's been, you know, it's an intentional choice, a choice a lot of people don't understand. But from the story I've told you, I've been here almost 20 years now, 19 years. And most of this journey has been failure and obstacles and people saying, "Oh, you're great. I'm going to make sure your career don't happen." Right. And so I cannot personally balance that with actually supporting a family. I've got several Muslim friends out who are filmmakers, and they are struggling because they don't know how to. I mean, it hurts their marriage. You know, you got to provide as a man. As a Muslim man, I got to provide. If I don't know, I just finished this project, I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from. 19 years into this, I don't want to live life like that, man. And so I'm not worried about a relationship until I get to a place of stability. And I'm hoping, inshallah, these shows that I've just told you about will go on the air. Once I have a TV show that's mine, that I'm a showrunner of, inshallah, that's a whole other level of my career. Then I can start thinking about, okay, maybe it's time for family.
Yeah, nice. Well, if a brother can do something for you, man, you just hit me up, inshallah.
Yeah, don't step all the ladies, man. Don't step all the ladies, man. You're stealing all of them from us. You leave a couple for the rest of the brothers, okay?
All bets are off there, okay? To every man, teach his own. Every man for himself. No, I'm joking.
I know.
Even there, man, if you need
I
some help,
think I love the limit on 4, man. I think I love the limit on 4. You'd be unstoppable, brother. Stop. Enough. 4. You got it. You're done.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I mean, we were kind of closing out there, but you make a good point that, like, I say it all the time. It's like you get more women, you don't have more time, you don't have more money, you got less. And so it's very important to be more established prior to, messing with a bunch of women than trying to do it later. Like I'm trying to do both at the same time. It's exceptionally difficult to balance it all, And so you're making a smart move. You're making the right move, man. Focusing and getting your stuff off the ground and whatnot. But if you need help, then let me know. We'll get you set up with a very nice Indonesian girl. She'll tie your shoes for you.
You're the two best places, the two best kinds of Muslims I found: Indonesians and West Africans. The Senegalese, they are devoted to Islam and they are great lives. So
I don't know anything about that region, Senegal and whatnot, but I know I'm very impressed with Indonesian women. They're very, very, very domestic. Very, very willing and aiming to please. So. Yeah, I might actually start something with this, like trying to help people get married. I'm thinking about like trying to get into the business.
It's a good thing. I will hope you do that. I think it's an important spiritual thing to do, and I think it'll be an expansion of your brand.
We'll see what happens. All right, guys. You guys got any questions for Kamran? We're going to chop it up here for maybe like another 10, 15 minutes, unless you guys like make it real awkward to sit here and not ask him any questions, and then we're going to call it a day. Who's got what?
On Twitter here. See if anybody said anything on Twitter that we need to respond to. I'm a Twitter addict, man. That's not a good thing.
Me and you both. Yeah. No, my Twitter's kind of dead, actually.
Maybe Allah's protected me because if Hollywood sees this video, they'll be like, okay, yeah, he's not liberal enough for us. Okay, we're done.
I had to come for you, huh? Wow. Cancel culture is alive and well. Aki says East African girls need help. You're gonna have to qualify that right there. What do they need help with, man? I mean, what, doing the laundry, changing a tire?
It doesn't mean that Western feminism is entering deeper into East Africa right now. I haven't seen that. I mean, to answer, I want to talk about West Africa. Actually, I'm actually into traditional tasawwuf, right? And I have a sheikh in West Africa who is part of the Senegalese tariqa, the Muridiyya, and and I've been to Africa now, West Africa, Senegal twice. I brought my mother on one trip, and I would say this: if you want to experience Islam as it was written about in these books, that you think, oh, that's ancient history, you go to Senegal. I mean, it is living Islam there. You walk in there like my mom said, I remember this kind of Islam when I was a little girl in Karachi during partition, right? In the 40s, right? And gentleness, the depth of love there for Allah, for the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's so real. I mean, I was blown away by it and I was humbled by it. And that's where I found my sheikh. And, it's one of those things where there's miraculous connections where, the sheikh sees you in a dream and reaches out to you. And since then, I've been connected with them, all kinds of karamat, miracles and things that are happen. And that put me on a very good spiritual path there. Okay. And I urge you to learn more about West Africa because especially the Tariq of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, one of the great, sheikhs of Africa, I have seen literal miracles. And this is old traditional Islam. People, there are some Muslims who say, "Oh, this Sufi stuff isn't." I'm talking about real tasawwuf. Talk about tasawwuf of the Salaf, right? Who using dhikr to connect you to Allah, and I've never seen anything like it. And it really opens your heart. It makes you realize Islam is literally magical. It's on another dimension, and there's people up there that we read about in books. Man, you read about the Muslims and the things that happen to them. This stuff is happening in the world right now.
Yeah. Anonymous Assassin has a question. He says, how does one get started on the road to business and financial independence? Asking from the place of a young lion.
You might want to take that first, and I can bring a Hollywood perspective to it.
No, please go first. I'm still working on it. I'm still building.
Well, I'm going to talk from my experience now, but hopefully you can interpolate that to entrepreneurs in general, because to be a filmmaker in Hollywood and to be a novelist, to be an artist, right, is to be an entrepreneur. You are living your life essentially creating without being sure if the market is ready for your material yet, right? And so You have people like Vincent Van Gogh who were ahead of the curve by several decades, and they died penniless, and they ended up their paintings are worth hundreds of millions of dollars today, right? So the pivotal thing is when you take any entrepreneurial path, is you have to, number one, know what your strengths are. But I knew writing was my strength, and I knew I had something to say. And you also have to start seeing is what you have to offer something that society needs. And often society doesn't know what it needs. This is the challenge, right? You have to be able to be prescient. You have to be looking into the future saying, people don't know they need this, but I know they do, and I'm going to provide it for them. And the key to it, the key to all of any business, whether it's entrepreneurial or traditional corporate, is persistence, right? It actually isn't talent. It isn't genius. I know a lot of talented people who have failed in Hollywood and left.
Okay.
A lot of people who are brilliant who weren't able to make it here. And I know a lot of people who are not very talented but are very successful. And it's because they had the persistence to get up and do it again and do it again and do it again. And just like, and I know that you're involved in, I think you're involved in martial arts. I know you work out, as you know, in the gym and in any kind of martial art. It is the repetition where the power comes from, right? It's the repetition. It's how your body, your muscle memory is trained, how your body trans. So it is the reason I'm still doing this 19 years later is I learned very quickly that Allah had given me a talent that He wasn't going to make it easy for me to manifest in the world, but He gave me a talent. And so He shown me that you can do this. I have persisted for 19 years, and I've developed a psychological muscle memory of survival that allows me to keep pushing forward. I don't know the day that I'm going to achieve, inshallah, the Oscars and the Emmys and all of that. I don't know if that's written for me in this lifetime. I don't know. But I'm going to persist. And in the process, I'm going to create some things that I would never have done had I not persisted.
Okay. I got a question here from Mukhtar. He says, what's your thoughts on Muslim girls smoking? I could probably shoot on that one. I mean, I just find smoking to be a kind of a nasty habit, period. I mean, my father was a smoker. He used to smoke, what was it? More menthols. And I don't know. I never found it to be a pleasing thing. I dated, back before I was Muslim, I dated a few girls that were smokers. Their fingers always stank. You know, the breath always had a funny smell. The teeth were a funny color. So, I mean, for me in general, I find smoking to be a nasty habit. Now, depending on what scholar you ask, also, they say it's either makruh or it's haram. So you also have that from the Islamic standpoint. But even if you accept that it's makruh and it's not haram, I'm not going to get into that because I don't know which one is which. The simple fact is it's just a nasty habit. You know, you're always going to have to kick her outside of the house to go smoke outside of the house. She's always going to have funky smelling fingers. I don't care how much a person washes their hands, that smell is there. You know, and if your girl comes over, touches your face and all that stuff, if you got a girl that's really into you and she touches your face or whatever else, you're going to smell that and you're like, ugh, you know, and that's actually kind of good for the relationship because she needs to qualify herself to you. And so she'll probably stop smoking, but it's not something that's nice. That's my humble opinion.
You have stated my opinion as well. My father was a smoker as well. He actually was very addicted to it. He, you know, at his height, he was probably 4 packs a day. I'm like 4 packs a day, right? And then when he was about 60, he had a heart attack, and the doctor told him, you have to let go of smoking. And he went from being addicted to cold turkey for the remainder of his life, gave him 10 more years. And so I'm personally anti-smoking because of what I witnessed with my father. Okay. What's my take on Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes? You know, I think that's an example. I mean, if you said he recently, I don't know if you are familiar with what happened. You know, he is this comedian who at the Golden Globes, he was the host of it, and he made this comment about how, you know, he made these jokes about how Hollywood people should just shut up and not talk about their politics because nobody cares about that, right? And that caused a lot of uproar in Hollywood. And a lot of people were very happy that he did that. And that's an example of the pendulum turning that I was talking about earlier in this, that Hollywood is beginning to figure out that the money isn't with these woke idiots, right? It isn't with these extreme leftists. And so that's why he was able to even say those things. All those jokes are you know, they are the Golden Globes people approved all those jokes. He ain't putting anything out there on television that they didn't approve. And so the very fact that he made jokes about Hollywood wokeness means that there's a cultural shift happening. I mean, personally, I have some issues with him because he's pretty anti-Muslim. But, you know, I'm at least glad he said that.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know he's anti-Muslim.
I mean, he said some pretty critical things about Islam on Twitter, but that's part of him being a jerk to everybody, I think.
Okay. So Janae says, do you think being openly critical of liberal values acts as a barrier to achieving our entrepreneurial ambitions?
In Hollywood, it certainly does. The limited amount of my beliefs that are known have made people upset, right? And so certainly in the environment that I'm in, I should keep my mouth shut, and I have difficulty doing that. For me, I speak truth to power, which is probably one of the reasons I've struggled so much. But I can't. When I hear nonsense, I can't stop. I have to respond to it. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think you. I mean, look, as a entrepreneur, you need to know what your market is, and you need to give your market what it wants. If you are a smarter person than me, if your product you're offering has nothing to do with politics, just offer it to everybody. Let them believe whatever they want and don't get into it, right? What I work in specifically, I have to talk about philosophical and spiritual and ideological things in my writing. It's part of storytelling, and it's hard for me to hide my beliefs, and that's the price.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Miss Abuamerican, thank you. This is my girl. She's always.
You have somebody taking your hashtag and Miss on it? Okay. God bless.
Yeah. No, Mrs. Abuamerican. That's literally my wife.
Oh, that's your mashallah. That's your wife. That's your mashallah. That's your wife.
11 euro super chat.
She gave you a super chat, $11. Man, you're proving right now who the alpha male is. SubhanAllah.
My girl, mashallah.
Right now, all you people watching, that's how it works, man. You don't see that in LA, man. You don't see nobody going, this is whatever, and doing super chat and live.
Wow, nice. Oh, my camera's all out of focus. What happened here? Let me see if I can fix this thing. There we go. Yeah. What anonymous assassin used that crappy currency, man? I don't want to see no dollars. That's what I know for sure.
My biggest regret is I actually, being a traditional conservative Muslim, I actually been buying up gold and silver. And this past year, I had to cash in a lot of it just to, keep doing one of those slow times. I had to pay my rent. And now gold is quantum leaping. I knew that was coming, and it's going to get even worse, And so I'm like, I got to get some gold again.
Nice. Yeah, I used to buy gold and everything, but when I got back from Qatar, I actually sold a lot of it when I left Qatar. Because I saw actually a friend of mine, he brought a bunch of gold with him to Qatar, and they gave him such a hard time leaving the country with it that I was like, let me just sell it. So I sold it all, and I went to the.
There's a great online site that I've used and have been very happy with for several years called goldmoney.com, where you purchase it, and it's actual physical gold that's stored in a vault, and you can have it shipped to you, or you can just have it there and it's traded electronically, which is what I've been doing. And I found that to be a very safe way to have gold overseas.
Okay, goldmoney.com. I wrote that down.
Yeah, I found it to be very helpful.
Yeah, Aki, about cryptocurrency. I mean, I buy a small amount of cryptocurrency now. It's very volatile. I mean, you're just gonna have to, I'm in a group that actually does like cryptocurrency signals. If you're into trading and whatnot, I'm not really into trading right now. I just buy a little bit and I sit on top of it. I think cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in specific is going to take off again. That's my humble opinion. I think it's an inevitability, especially in times of instability. So I always buy a small amount every month. But generally, that's something you need to really be, you need to ask an expert on that, and that I'm definitely not. So yeah, I don't know about you, Kamran, but
well, I mean, the thing is, I actually, because I'm living in such an unstable and insecure profession, I actually am very conservative in investing. I don't do day trading. I don't do any of these things, which would probably enhance my income. But right now, I just try to invest in gold and real estate, those kinds of things that have longer term stability, because my career profession is so unstable. I can't add another level of risk to it. I just can't.
Yeah, me and Aki on the same thing. We buy and hold. Yeah, buy and hold.
Yeah,
I've amassed quite a bit actually. All right, Aki, cool. All right, guys, an hour and 30 minutes. Kamran, it has been an absolute, complete, and total pleasure to have you on. You've been following me for a long time, actually. It's been a while.
Yeah, you finally followed me back last week. I followed you for 2 years, brother.
That's not bad, man.
Okay, I'm good. We're good.
You know what it was, man? I saw some of your comments pop up, and you were really hammering cats. I was like, this guy's got a sharp mind. Now it makes sense. You're a lawyer and you're a screenwriter, all that stuff. I was like, this guy's got a sharp mind. I said, I got to have him on the show. And so I saw some of your comments. I was like, oh, this guy's worth following. Because I got to clean up my feed, man. I got a bunch of knuckleheads on there and intellectual bums and midgets on my feed. So I got to get rid of those guys and replace them with brainy people. And you're definitely a brainy dude. So I was happy to see your comments on there with some people.
I'm honored to be on here. Like I said, your journey is just beginning. You are a major influencer already, and inshallah, even much more in the future. And I just ask that Allah guide you to the right points of view that will help you and help this deen. And I think you're already on that path.
Alhamdulillah, I mean. All right, guys. So check out the comments again. You can see Kamran stuff, his website. Follow him on Twitter. We're out.
Thank you. Salam.